And if you won't stop, in 15 minutes I shall stop you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melanie from the Open University. I'm a PhD student and I'm autistic and I have ADHD.
My name's Cameron Richards, I'm from Dudley Voice of Choice. I have ADHD and a learning disability.
And we're here to tell you today about some research that we've been doing, which is discourse analytic research about the ways that people talk when they're talking about learning disabilities. So it's my project, so I make ultimately all the decisions, but I take advice and guidance regularly from my PhD supervisors, who are Jean McAvoy and Rose Capdevila from the Open University, and from a reference group, an advisory group of people with learning disabilities, of which Cameron is a member. And so far I have interviewed a number of people who, some of whom have learning disabilities, some of whom don't, but work with people with learning disabilities. And I'm interested in the kinds of language that they use, the kinds of things that they say when they're talking about the topic of learning disabilities. So I asked them a variety of questions, just to get them talking about the topic in general. We're going to present to you some quotes and tell you our preliminary thoughts about what patterns we're seeing.
And we're hopeful with these guys that we can get you lot to start talking to us and have a general discussion and have a good time in the end. So, we ready to go?
Yeah,
let's get it on. You can read from the screen if you need to.
Yeah. So the first quote is from a woman who doesn't have learning disabilities. It might be easier if I look at this screen, but I'm not trying to.
Yeah, if you want to go there, I'll go up here.
Project that way and look that way. Right. So this woman who doesn't have learning disabilities, when asked what learning disability means, she said, "I think it's something that we as a society feel," and then she paused and she said, "I think if we have it, that it's different. And therefore, because it's different, then it makes people uncomfortable, but it's not different." And the next quote is from a man with learning disabilities who said, "I think basically it just means you're different and you're not a normal person." And I think that's the simplest way to put it. We see the world through a different angle.
And I guess the first thing I take away from me as a person reading that as well is, what is normal? Normal in this generation. In previous generations, people thought normal was anything that didn't look like them. I thought normal was themselves. But as the generations go on, each generation that normal becomes more and more diluted until normal becomes as clear as water and can be whatever anyone thinks. So, come on, Brian, think. No, I can't read it. And again, going from the last quote to the first quote, it's from the diluted that society feels it is in society.
Yeah, I think those are some key points. Don't know, we'd like this to be an interactive session. Has anybody got anything they'd like to say about these quotes or the ideas that we've said so far?
Want me to move to the next one?
Should we move on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So as well as this idea of difference, we also got a lot of people talking about people with learning disabilities are the same as anybody else. So this first quote is from a woman with learning disabilities who said, "If you have a disability in that, you're just the same as anybody else. Just the same as everyone else," she said. And this next quote is from a woman who works with people with learning disabilities. And so she said, "They're just adults, same as any other adult." So here people are talking about differences, and they're also talking about being the same. And that's a paradox, isn't it? What do you reckon, Cameron?
It is in itself a paradox. Well, it's right and it's wrong, because I believe it falls on what we talked to before. Everyone's the same, but we're different, aren't we? No one disability can be the same as another. We don't mirror each other. For example, me and Matt both have ADHD, but ADHD can be tweaked and changed within the snap of your finger. It's same with learning disabilities. It goes throughout the range. Goes from very bad to very mild to very low. I should have said that the other way around. Oh well. And when we did practice this, it wasn't majority of the words wasn't from my mouth, majority was from Mel himself, because you have more insight in this one more than me. What do you think?
I'm interested in the ways that people keep talking about these differences and also talking about the similarities. And I'm interested in getting a bit more to the bottom of what they mean by that. There's some things they could mean. It might mean that we all as human beings have some things in common, but we're also all unique. And so maybe when they're talking about sameness, they're resisting the idea of people pushing people with learning disabilities, the topic of this conversation, pushing them away and saying they're other, they're separate, they're in a different category, they're not like us, whoever us is in that conversation. And so by talking about sameness, they're fighting back against that way of thinking. And they're going, no, they're not other, they're not different, or we're not other, we're not different, we're just the same as everyone else.
And like the quotation reads, they're just adults, same as any other adults. It's kind of a good song said, we're all just only human. I can't help reference pop culture, it's my own technique.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
So this is a quote, and I think this relates to what Cameron drew out from the previous quotes about adults, same as any other adult. And I think this is pushing back against a tendency to talk about people with learning disabilities as though they're children. So some people really emphasise adults. We're talking about adults, because I only interviewed adults. Obviously there are children with learning disabilities. But this person who I interviewed, a woman who works with people with learning disability, said, I think that as you're an adult with learning disability, people continue to treat you like a child.
This notion to me is one of the notions of, do we see this as truth or do we see it as false? The notion itself might be true because you're a person with disabilities, they think that speaking to you as a child is the easiest way to understand you. When in actuality that's the falsehood that people perceive for people like us. It's a falsehood that says you don't have the intellect. The other way of saying learning disabilities, I really dislike it because it makes it sound less intelligent, intellectual. You say human, like everyone else. Intellectual difficulties or disabilities. It's one of the words.
There you go.
Geek. I really hate it because intellectual disabilities, in my mind, makes it sound like we can't cope like other people. We're too stubborn to see it. And it's a falsehood I disagree with heavily. We are all adults and we all can understand our language. It just takes time. And people can't afford to spend time that they need to make sure everyone is treated with equal rights and equal opportunities. Hence why the Equality in the Rest Act is has been through so many modifications.
You just give me an amazing insight that I'm going to take back to my analysis about time, because I hadn't written this down myself, but people did talk a lot about time, that people with learning disabilities can learn the same things as anybody else, but it takes them longer. So I've just suddenly realised in this presentation that time is an important pattern in my data. Thank you, Cameron.
And that's why I'm trying to sit down to 20 minutes is a really annoying thing. But hey, I've got to be done.
So this idea of resistance, and it's in the title of the presentation, because I think it's an important one. I think a lot of the things that I'm hearing are people resisting the ways that they're talked about. So the fact that people with learning disabilities do feel that they're often talked about as though they're children, and they're fighting back against that, and they're saying, no, we're not children. And so a lot of the time they were emphasising to me, we can learn the same things as other people, it just takes longer. We are adults the same as everybody else, but we do need a bit of help with certain things. And one of the ways I think that showed up is that I didn't ask any questions about jobs and employment, but lots of people with learning disabilities spontaneously talked to me about their jobs. So for example, in this little extract, I was interviewing a woman with learning disabilities, and I was asking her, how does learning disability affect you? And she said, well, it doesn't really affect me at the moment because I've got a part-time job at the moment. And I asked her, well, where do you work? And she told me at McDonald's, and she went on to tell me all about her job. And I think one of the reasons why people keep bringing this up about employment is that it's something that separates adults from children. In the UK, certainly, children don't typically work. And so by saying, I've got a job, it's almost like waving a flag and saying, I'm a grown-up. And that was very important to people. And I think it's important because it's this resistance. What do you reckon?
I think because I read similar to the scripts, luckily, and there was one based on the paradox. How many anyone here knows the paradox of Schrodinger's cat? Yeah, you know, put a hand up. This is gonna be fun. So there's a paradox of there's poison in the box and a cat. If the box is shut, the cat survives. If you open the box, the wild breaks and the cat dies from poison. I think it can show here in a little bit different. People with disabilities and learning disabilities in a box. Like kept in that box, and we don't know anything about it. But as soon as you open that box, disabilities can flow into or flows out the atmosphere. If we say we have a job, we can believe that we have developed to a point that our disabilities doesn't defy us. And I think it comes into a idea that I had while speaking about this of if you knew you had learning disabilities, would you want the cure for it? Would you choose to have the cure that would remove the idea of you having a learning disability and remove the label that you have a learning disability? Or are you brave enough and proud enough to say, yes, I have a learning disability, yes, I am different? With ADHD and with learning disabilities, it's been a major factor in my life from young to old, and it's probably going to be a main factor when I get old and grey. Come on, silver hair. And because I've lived it so long, I don't want the cure. If I had the cure, then nothing in my life would happen. I wouldn't have never met Mel and been able to help with this. I would have never met DVC and worked with them as close as I have. Hell, I would never got my own personal assistant, which is fun.
For the day.
So I understand why people resist it and why people say we are adults, we have jobs, we can be adults. But I hate the idea that we choose to resist. We all have a choice. Everyone resists, we have a choice. I choose to accept it where these people choose to resist it. And it's not a bad thing. Everyone has their own weaknesses and their own strengths.
I'm not sure that in the interviews it was coming out to me that people were resisting having a disability. I thought they were resisting being talked about as though they were children, and that's absolutely fair because none of them were children. But there were some people, and we haven't got any quotes here, who weren't at all keen on talking to me about learning disability in their lives. There was one interviewee who was very, very keen to talk to me about his identity as a Manchester City fan and how important it was to be a Manchester City fan and what things he did as a Manchester City fan and what his opinions were about Manchester United fans. And that was obviously a much more important part of his identity to him. He wasn't very interested in talking about being a person with learning disability.
I love how the lads can clearly identify who's a Man U fan and who's a Man United fan. I'm just saying that now. Want me one?
Well, this is your slide, Cameron.
Damn it. I feel like when we look through all the quotations, these summed it up, and it's just at the end of the day, it's the facts that we know. And a person with disability said, disability is a word, not a sentence, not a condition. It's a word that we all use to describe what we are. Don't believe it. Don't read it. Don't read it at face value. And I'm going to say now, there was a phrase that I learned this weekend, euphemism treadmill. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. And it's the idea that people, that young people and that the generations choose that words should have the negative impact of what they are. It's the same with female dog. It's what they call female dog. Yes, you can laugh. It's what they call female dog, yet people use it as a standard term for females. It's the same with job roles. People choose specific job roles and choose it in a negative opinion. Kids can be mean and horrible, but with our generation, we can impact their decisions and show them that I heard the story of a person getting bullied young because they had Down syndrome. The child saw this and went to their mom, why are they picking on Down syndrome people? Instead of pointing out the fact of they're using Down syndrome as a standard, they wanted to point out the fact of Down syndrome isn't negative, it's a thing that you just born with. And the last one that I'll end this on is, without the diagnosis, they're just people, aren't they? And like I said before, adults are adults. And again, we are all just human at the end of the day. There's no discrimination between just being human. It's the idea that labels impact us so heavily, and it shouldn't be, in my opinion, it shouldn't be the case. A label is a label, nothing more, nothing less.
Should we move on to our last slide?
Might as well.
So that's the end of our talk. There's some information there if you want to contact us, and some acknowledgements for people we wanted to thank. And where is our esteemed chair gone? Have we got a few moments for questions?
Yes, you have 11 seconds.
Oh, 11-second questions.
You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so what we were going to say is, if you can't talk to us now, we're literally hanging around. We got all day to find us. We are based in this hotel, and we're having dinner over at the Grand. I love how it's called Grand, and at night time it's only called Grand because Pete doesn't like up.
Any?
Yeah, any questions?
Any questions?